Thanks so much. Thank you, Jason. Good to see everybody. Greetings from the free state of Florida. You know, normally when I go north, if you're looking for freedom, especially as you get in New England, it can be a little rough sledding, except for that one slice of freedom, the live free or die state. So it's great to be in New Hampshire. I actually I logged 7 years in New England with my education. And I think I can say this with a pretty decent amount of confidence that I am one of the few people in this country who've graduated from both Harvard and Yale and came out more conservative than we went in. That's not easy to do. So if they couldn't change me, there's no way the swamp's going to change me. Don't worry about that. When I was up in New England, I made the decision after 9/11. I was in school to volunteer and commission in the Navy. We volunteered. I was an officer with Navy JAG. We volunteered to serve in Iraq. I deployed back in 2007. I was serving with U.S. Special Warfare Navy SEALs in Fallujah, Ramadi, all these places. So you had Al-Qaeda in Iraq. You had a lot of bad folks there. They were doing a lot of bad things. You had Iran funding Shia militias and killing a lot of our service members, hundreds of them, if not over 1,000 during that time. And I also served for a time in Guantanamo Bay, where we had people like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and some of those terrorists there. So I've seen a lot of this, and I obviously was motivated to join in response to the terrorist attack on 9/11 that this country suffered. But I must say, what we saw over the weekend in Israel, that's a new depth of depravity with what Hamas did by decapitating babies, executing elderly people, filming this, putting it out for family members to witness the execution of their loved ones. These are evil, evil people. And this merits an overwhelming response by the state of Israel. We must stand with Israel and their right to defend themselves against the Hamas aggression. They don't have to live like this. And you're already seeing the media looking and blame Israel. They're talking about Gaza, this, that. There's no water. There's no all these other things. The only thing that's going to end this is for Israel to uproot all the infrastructure that Hamas has done, all the terror accoutrements, and makes Hamas no more. That's the only thing that they could possibly do. And here's the thing. If Hamas and Hezbollah and these places, if they lay down their arms tomorrow, you would have peace. If Israel laid down its arms tomorrow, you would see the annihilation of the Jewish state at the hands of those groups. So don't give me moral equivalence. Don't tell me somehow that Israel is to blame. They should be able to defend themselves, and we will support their right to do it. Now, I don't think I need to tell you, but what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in our own country, what's going on in our border shows this country is in disarray. Our country is in a state of decline. The economy, the culture, law and order, all these different things are going in the wrong direction. Now, this decline is not inevitable. This decline is a choice. And I refuse to wave the white flag of surrender and say we just can't make it better. I refuse to say that we as Republicans are simply going to manage the decline a little bit better than the Democrats. No, we accept nothing less than reversing the decline of this country. We will usher in an American revival and give this country a new birth of freedom. Now, in order to do that, you got to lead and you got to be able to get the job done. We have no more time for empty promises. We have no more time for political slogans that you have no intention of following through with once you get into office. And the way I think about what I will do as president, and I thought about this when we were going out to California to do the debate at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley. I started thinking about some of the president's speeches and some of what he did, and I thought back when he left office and he gave a farewell address. He was talking about the accomplishments of the administration. So one way I can stand here today and tell you why I should be the Republican nominee and be the next president is because I fast forward to January of 2033. After 2 terms of serving as your president, what am I going to be able to tell you that we actually accomplished? Not that what we promised, but what we actually accomplish. And we'll be able to say a number of things. One, we will be able to say that we have restored the American dream in this country. You can get ahead again when you work hard. You are not going to be beaten down by crippling inflation and crippling interest rates, which, by the way, were engineered by Congress and presidents and the Federal Reserve. Your government created this crisis. It wasn't something that just fell into their lap. We will make sure that Congress cannot spend this country into oblivion anymore. We will make sure to get the bureaucracy off the backs of the American people so that people can succeed again in small business and as individuals. We will make sure that we fully open up this country's energy resources for production so you pay less for gas, the economy can run on cheaper energy prices, more jobs, and oh, by the way, pretty good for our national security as well. So if a family can't raise kids and get ahead and afford a house or afford a car, this country is not going to work. We're going to make sure this country works again. We're going to make sure people can get ahead again. We're also going to restore the sovereignty of our country. We will have enforceable borders, including the southern border and the northern border here in New Hampshire. And we're going to do that not by slogans. We're going to do that by, on day one, declaring it to be a national emergency. We're going to mobilize all available resources, including our U.S. military. We're going to stop the invasion cold. When people come in illegally, we're not going to whine about it. I'm sending them back to where they came from. And yes, we will build the border wall. I was a big supporter of President Trump's promise, or candidate Trump in 2016, to build the wall and have Mexico pay for that wall. Now, that didn't happen. And he said recently that the reason it didn't happen was because there was no legal mechanism where he could have made Mexico pay for the wall. Now, that wasn't what he said in 2016, because I was at those rallies. He was saying they're going to pay. But here's the thing. You actually can have Mexico pay for the wall. No, they're not just going to give us money. I understand that. What do? You impose fees on the remittances that foreign nationals are making money here. They're sending the remittances back to Mexico and Central America and South America. You raise billions and billions of dollars, and you construct the border wall. I will get that done. We will make that happen. And that's important. But what's even more important, and I'm the first candidate, no president's been willing to do this. I'm the first candidate that said he would do it. Now they're all copying me. We're going to treat the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. We are going to authorize the use of deadly force against the Mexican drug cartels. Why? Because they are invading our country and they are killing tens of thousands of our fellow Americans with fentanyl. They're poisoning our communities, and it's not just border communities. Every community has become a border community. You have it ravaging communities in New Hampshire. We have it in Florida and everywhere in between. And, drug addiction's a tough thing, but with fentanyl, it's beyond even that. And I've been able to meet a lot of these moms across the country. They're called angel moms. They're moms who have lost somebody to fentanyl overdose. And what you find with these is not that their kids were junkies or doing drugs all the time. Maybe they were stressed out, taking an exam. Someone told them, you take a pill, it'll help you get through. And turns out that pill was laced with fentanyl. Kid takes it and dies. We had a situation in Florida where we had an 18-month-old baby crawling on the carpet of an Airbnb rental. And presumably whoever had it before was doing drugs. There was fentanyl residue in the carpet. The baby came in contact with it, and the baby died. Can you imagine being a parent, having an 18-year-old crawling on the carpet and then dying from this? And yet this is happening all across the country, and the D.C. elites, they don't give a damn about what's happening. They're not doing anything to rescue this country from the carnage. They're just business as usual, borrow and spend more money, don't even worry about the problems. Well, those days end when I'm president, and the first time a member of a drug cartel tries to sneak in fentanyl into this country, it's going to be the absolute last thing that they do, because we're going to shoot them stone cold dead right at that southern border. We're going to also be able to say that the United States remains the world's leading superpower. We will have a strong military, and we will have successfully fended off the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party. I think the terrorism we're seeing is real. Terrorism is not done as much as we hope it is. It's going to continue to be an issue. And I worry about when you have 7 million people come into your country through the border illegally, you don't think our enemies have been putting people in that plan on doing this country harm? So we've got real threats from terrorism, and it's something that Biden has exacerbated with his recklessness. But I also know China is our first peer competitor since the end of the Cold War. They want to pass us economically. They want to pass us military. Biden, the way he's going, they are going to do both. We're going to make sure that American strength wins the day. We're not going to let them take more of our industry. We're going to establish economic independence from China, and we're going to have a strong Navy. We're going to have a strong power to be able to prevent them from realizing their ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. And when we do that, by the end of the decade and into the next decade, we will have ensured that the 21st century remains the American century and not the Chinese century. We are We are also going to be able to tell people that our school systems are focusing solely on educating our kids, not on indoctrinating our kids. Parents' rights to direct the education and upbringing of their kids will be respected and honored all across the land. We are not going to be teaching kids to hate this country or to hate each other, and we are going to make sure that our young people are taught about our Constitution and about what it means to be an American, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to carry on. And when you look at what's happening at places like Harvard and these other places where these students are signing these letters supporting Hamas terrorists, you know something is really, really wrong with our education system. You know, in Florida, we've actually fought and won against that, but this country needs a lot of work. We're not going to succeed if our education system is churning out nothing but garbage. And what I saw at Harvard was a total disgrace. And I would run the other way if I saw any of those kids wanting a job from me, I can tell you that. We're also going to ensure that whether you live in a red state or a blue city, criminals are held responsible for their misconduct. You do the crime, you do the time. I'm sick of letting these rogue prosecutors release people back into the community. They commit more crimes, generate more victims, the crime rate goes up, and the quality of life collapses. We're going to make sure that the rule of law prevails from coast to coast in this country. And then finally, we're going to make sure that we will have made sure that the U.S. Constitution has been restored to its rightful place at the center of our national life. The Founding Fathers created a government of limited powers. They created 3 branches of government. They did not create a 4th branch of government, an administrative state that looms over us and imposes its will on us. No, government must be limited. No unaccountable bureaucracy, no weaponization of federal power. And we're going to make sure that we hold the government accountable for its misdeeds, starting with COVID-19 lockdown policies and mandates and restrictions. I'm bringing a reckoning. I will have brought a reckoning to the CDC, the NIH, and the FDA. They harmed people with what they were doing. They lied to the public on so many different issues. It has hurt this country. It still is hurting this country today, and yet nobody's been held accountable. I think people like Fauci need to be brought to justice. They need to be held accountable. And all that's great, and there'll be more we'll be able to say. But if we're able to say all those things, then we'll also be able to say that we have restored what President Reagan called the shining city on a hill, that we will have left the country freer and stronger, and most importantly, we will have turned her over to our kids and grandkids in better shape than we found it. And as it stands now, we're in jeopardy of being the first generation of Americans to leave to our kids and grandkids a less prosperous and less free America than what we inherited. So we've got big work to do, but here's the thing. Ultimately, what's missing right now is leadership. Leadership that will be able to get the job done, leadership that you can trust to fight for you, particularly when the chips are down, because it's easy to lead when you have the wind at your back. The question is, who's going to dig in there and fight when the arrows are coming at them? And there's nobody running who has stood up and delivered to the extent that I have. Everything I promised the people of Florida I would do. I delivered 100% of the promises that we did. We said we'd cut taxes. We set a record for tax cuts. I said I'd run budget surpluses. We've run record surpluses. We paid down almost 25% of our state's total outstanding debt just in the 5 years that I've been governor. We enacted universal school choice throughout the state of Florida. We enacted a Parents' Bill of Rights, which says parents have the fundamental right to direct the education and upbringing of their children. We got ideology out of our schools by eliminating critical race theory. And we stood up to the most powerful company in the history of the state of Florida, Disney, to say we are not going to let the sexualization of our curriculum happen, particularly in elementary school. It is wrong to teach a second grader that they were born in the wrong body or that gender is a choice. And that's not happening in Florida because we stood up and fought back. We have banned the purchase of land by the Chinese Communist Party in the state of Florida. Not letting them get our farmland. We need to do that all across the country. We have kneecapped this idea of ESG, environment, social governance, where these big companies and asset managers try to take money, doesn't belong to them, and they try to impose a left-wing agenda on society, going after fossil fuels, going after Second Amendment, going after things that the left doesn't like. We nixed that from our pension fund. I took $2 billion that was being managed by BlackRock, and I took it away from them and put it in places where they're not doing it. We banned the use of ESG scores for rating state and municipal bonds, and we do not recognize, and we're one of only a couple states, we do not recognize the use of central bank digital currency in the state of Florida. You know, they want to, with the central bank digital currency, they want to get rid of cash, they want to get rid of cryptocurrency, they want to force everyone to use CBDC, controlled by the central bank. Why do they want to do that? They just want to be nice to you? They just want to make life easier for you? No, they want to control what you're allowed to do. And people say at places like the World Economic Forum, oh, you're going to be able to limit transactions for ammo and gas and all the things that the elites don't like. I can tell you this, as president, on day one, we're throwing CBDC in the trash can where it belongs. And those policies from Davos and the World Economic Forum are going to be dead on arrival in the United States of America. We also reformed our higher education system. Show me another state that's gotten involved in higher education. Now in the state of Florida, all tenured professors must undergo review every 5 years and can be let go for poor performance. We've also eliminated so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in our public university system. They say that's what it is, but in reality, the way it's practiced, it's discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, and that has no place in our public universities. We also took one of our small liberal arts colleges in Sarasota called New College. It was supposed to be the top honors college in Florida. You know, I get in there, I'm looking at it. It's like a Marxist commune, left of the left, at taxpayer expense. And I'm like, why are we doing this? So I put 7 conservatives on the board of trustees. They fired the president, hired a conservative president. They eliminated DEI. They abolished the gender studies department. And they set up a new mission statement that says this is going to be a classical liberal arts university like Hillsdale College in Michigan. And so because so they're turning over the faculty, so, you know, a lot are leaving, they're recruiting new stars to come in, and, you know, the media doesn't want to talk about any of the good stuff that's happening there, even though applications are through the roof, parents are excited, all this stuff. But they'll write these articles like, oh, brain drain out of New College as professors leave. And I'm like, wait a minute. If a professor of intersectional Marxism is leaving Florida, that's not a bad thing for Florida. That's a good thing for Florida. Are you kidding me? So we've actually fought back and made higher education really what it was supposed to be in a classical sense, and that's going to pay huge dividends. And oh, by the way, our in-state tuition is $6,400 a student. Our out-of-state tuition is only $16,000 a student. So you could go to New College and get this great new experience that we're going to be doing, and many of our other universities, for less than what in-state tuition is at many states in this country. So we're doing it right on all of that. We've also stood up against illegal immigration. We've banned sanctuary cities in the state of Florida. I've sent people to help Texas at the southern border. We have mandatory E-Verify to ensure we have a legal workforce, and we even help transport 50 illegal aliens to beautiful Martha's Vineyard. And nobody was talking about this until that happened, and now that's gone to New York and all these other places, and now it's a big issue where you have governor of New York, governor of Illinois, mayor of New York City saying you got to close the border. Who would have thought that was possible just 15 months ago? So that worked, and that's the type of leadership we need. So we've done on the immigration. We've also established, unquestionably, Florida as the top law and order state in this country. We don't defund police. We give police $5,000 bonuses who we recruit into our state from Chicago, Seattle, all these places. We ban local governments from being allowed to defund police. You know, the thing is like the state of Florida would never do that. But, you know, any city can elect 3 yahoos to some city council. I'm not going to let them cut off their nose to spite their face and not have police on the street and have their citizens be exposed. And so we've stood up to do that. We also said when the George Floyd riots and BLM riots were happening, I said, I am not allowing Florida cities to burn down. I called out the National Guard. We said this isn't going to fly. And now we have anti-riot legislation which says if you riot, you loot, you engage in mob violence. We're not going to treat you like they do in Portland where they give you a slap on the wrist and put you right back on the street. No, you do that in Florida, you're getting the inside of a jail cell because we're holding you accountable. And the result, and this just took effect in October. We signed legislation providing for the death penalty for pedophiles, which should be the case. And we've done much more, but when the rubber hit the road for Florida, the reason why Florida is doing well, we're the #1 economy according to CNBC, which is not a fan of mine, by the way, #1 for education by U.S. News, fastest growing, highest migration rates, all these different things. The reason we got to that point is because when COVID hit, when the rubber hit the road, we had to make decisions as governors and as executives. Are you going to let your state or your country turn into a Faucian dystopia, or are you going to stand up and fight back when it was very clear early on this stuff wasn't going to work? And so we made the decision that we would choose freedom over Fauciism. I was getting hammered by the media. I was getting hammered by the left. I was even getting hammered by a lot of Republicans who said, oh, you can't have kids in school, all these other things. And I had a lot of supporters who were like, you are lighting, you're not doing well, you got to stop all this stuff, you got to just mandate something, they were telling me, I remember, just to kind of save face on it. And I'm like, look, my job as a leader is to care more about protecting the jobs of the people I represent than I do about protecting my own political hide. And you should expect nothing less from your leaders than that. I didn't know how it was going to work out politically, but I knew that I would stand strong to do what I thought was right. Yeah, we got hammered, but you know what? After we stood our ground, didn't budge, months later, everyone wanted to be in Florida, and the rest is history. So standing for what's right and doing it. So we have the record that you can trust of somebody that if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Part of it is will. I don't want to make a promise to you that I won't follow through in. I know other people say all these things and then never follow through, but I also have a sense of how to actually get this done. I know how to use the levers of power. That's how we did it in Florida. You don't just flail out there. You've got to be disciplined. You got to be focused. And we got the job done. So if we're able to do that, then 2024 is a great opportunity for us. But the time for excuses for Republicans is over. We've had 3 straight election cycles where we've had substandard results. Not in Florida. We had a red wave in Florida in 2022. We won by a record margin. No Republican has running for governor ever run a bigger election than we did, and we showed it can be done. We were winning areas like Miami and Palm Beach that no Republicans won in many decades, and we got the job done. So there's no more excuses. You've got to get the job done, and we've got to deliver a victory, because if the Democrats win again, they're going to try to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. They're going to try to abolish the Electoral College. They're going to try to make Washington, D.C. a state, and they are going to eliminate the use of voter ID in every jurisdiction in this country. And we're not going to be able to dig ourselves out of that hole if they're able to do it. So I'm motivated for this fight because we need a president who can serve 2 terms and get the job done. We need a president that has a track record of winning big elections and overperforming the fundamentals. And we need a president that understands, I have a 6, a 5, and a 3-year-old at home. I'm sensitive about the future of our country. I want to make sure they have the same opportunities that I had. I started with nothing. I started working with minimum wage jobs, clawing myself, trying to get through school, doing all this stuff. And yeah, I made choices to join the Navy. I would have made a lot more money and all this stuff. But you go where I started in Dunedin, Florida, and then by age 40, I'm the governor of the 3rd largest state in this country, the 13th largest economy in the world. And now, after a 2-term election, running for president, no one would have thought that that was possible, and it wouldn't be possible in any other country in this world. So we're losing a lot of that American dream, and we owe it to our kids and grandkids to do better. But I'll tell you this, we also owe it to the people that have come before us and have sacrificed so that we can be free. I used to take flights up to Washington, D.C., and there was a particular route you could take going into Reagan Airport. And it took you flush parallel to the National Mall. So if you looked out the left side of the plane, you saw very up close, really awe-inspiring views of the Lincoln Memorial, the reflecting pool, the Washington Monument, all these different things, and then the U.S. Capitol building, the beautiful Capitol there. And you felt a sense of pride as an American. You felt like the principles and ideals that make us unique were exemplified in those monuments and those buildings. And as you're flying in there, you're like, yeah, I'm glad to be an American. But I'll tell you this, what I figured out after doing that, our best monuments were not on that National Mall. Because if you looked out the right side of the plane, you looked over the Potomac River, you saw a series of small, nondescript monuments orderly arranged over the rolling hills of a place called Arlington National Cemetery. And it occurred to me then, and I believe now, you can have the best Constitution in the world, you can have the best Declaration of Independence in the world. These things do not run on autopilot. They require each generation of Americans to step up and do their part when freedom is at risk. And that may mean putting on a uniform, risking your life, and indeed giving that last full measure of devotion for service to this country. Now, we're not asked to make those types of sacrifices here in this political season, but what we are called upon to do is stand firm for the truth, do all we can to make sure that we're victorious in the political battles ahead, and not back down from doing what is right. As your candidate, as for the Republican Party, I can promise you this, I'm not going to fail. I will get the job done for you. As a leader, I'll be somebody that you can be proud of. And most importantly, as your president, I promise I will not let you down. Thank you all. God bless you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Great to be in the live free or die state. Are we going to do some questions? Do we have time for questions? Oh, I don't have time for questions? Okay. One quick question. What do you got? Yes, I mean, so questions about the electric grid, resiliency of the grid, attacks against our grid are a huge threat, EMPs, other types of threats, terrorist groups, it's a lot of bang for the buck. And I'm sensitive to this in Florida because in Florida, when we have hurricanes, obviously they do damage, but even a Category 5 like we had with Hurricane Ian last year, you know, in a major area, only a small fraction of the people lose their homes, and are displaced. And so you've got to get the lights back on. And if you get the lights back on for everybody, all the recovery, everyone's calm, it's good. If people go 3-4 weeks, like in some other states, with no power at all, it ends up being, and so just imagine if they did that on a permanent basis, our society would totally crumble. So it's a huge issue. I worked on that back when I was in the Congress. That'll be a priority for us. And, you know, here's the thing, too, with our electric grid. The Democrats want to force everyone to buy an electric vehicle, okay? And, you know, first of all, like, yeah, I mean, it's, like, look, I had a Ford F-150 before I became governor. I want that to be gas. I don't want that to be an electric, but that's fine, whatever you want. And if people want to buy those, I got no problem with the market sorting itself out. But places like California, they're forcing all new cars at a certain date in the pretty close future to be electric. They're not going to be allowed to sell a new car that is not electric. And so they make this announcement. They pat themselves on the back. It's like, oh, they're so green. Then 2 days later, they make another announcement. All current EV owners, do not plug in your EV. Our electric grid cannot handle it. Well, what's going to happen when you add another 10, 20, 30 million of these? The grid would not be able to handle it. They're not doing it. So that tells me this is just very expensive virtue signaling. And, you know, a car's environmental impact is not just measured on whatever comes out of the exhaust pipe. Because in China, they have a lot of electric vehicles. Where do they get the energy to charge their electric vehicles? Coal plants. They're building 2 new coal plants every week. And yet, do you see Biden doing anything about that? Of course not. And so we can't fall into this, what they're doing. You need reliable, cheap energy. And the way to do that is to use the resources that we have here in the United States. And it also is the case with Biden. I don't support mandates. We're going to repeal the mandates on electric. But if that's where you're doing, you're relying on China to mine all the critical minerals. We have some here. He won't let people mine our own critical minerals in the United States. That's putting America last, and that's wrong. I got to go? All right, I got to go to my next one. Thank you, guys. God bless you. I'm asking for your support. I won't let you down. God bless you.